And I can't stand that. I think it's an interdisciplinary, inter-emotional world, and there's no point even attempting to categorize yourself unless you think you can benefit from that categorization. So, but that's a monetary related thing, and that's really a despotic disposition. You don't want to be that way. If everyone was simply honest in their communication and communicated what they felt was important at any given time, honest with themselves, which most people are definitely not, then you'd see the art of the world be just absolutely incredible. In fact, what I would say is, with regards to the Venus Project and resource-based economy, one of the things I think about quite frequently is what an amazingly artistic world it would be once people are motivated to create art, to create film, to create music, without the motivation of gain, without the motivation of money. And people would do it for the sake of doing it. You wouldn't have all these obviously corporately produced, fashion-generating artists out there that really kind of pollute the landscape as far as what novel and true artistic communication in my mind might be, which is extremely honest. So there's a lot of dishonesty in the art world, and I can't listen to the radio. I don't have a television. I can't stand any of it anymore. Frankly, I kind of in a bubble myself, but I'm paying attention. But I feel, sorry to ramble on, Joel, but one thing I would like to point out is that the more you begin to understand what Jacques talks about, the more you begin to relate to these value concepts, the more alienated you might become, the more foreign you might seem to everyone you know. And this is one of the first things Jacques told me, actually. He said, if you start to go out and pursue stuff like this, you're going to lose friends. Yeah. You're gonna find conflict in places that you never thought you'd find conflict before. And he was absolutely right. People are threatened by independence, and they're threatened by honesty, and they're threatened by altruism, because it really makes them feel inferior and guilty, and makes them feel humiliated. So there's a reason why people like Martin Luther King were stabbed in the chest, punched in the face, bricks thrown at them, a house blown up, and eventually assassinated. Because the more giving people are, the more they're a threat to both the status quo and, naturally, the self-appointed guardians of the status quo.
Yeah. What is it that gives you motivation to work towards this when you're down about it? Maybe,
well, I'll be perfectly frank. Well, I don't really get down about it anymore, but when I do get frustrated and I find myself having to deal with a lot of noise, where there's, just noise that you're unfortunately, noise that grows large enough where you have to address it, you're forced to, I remind myself essentially of the paradigm that I live in, first of all. I acknowledge the reality. So when you are able to do that well enough, you don't really get frustrated anymore. One little trick that I recommend, it's an Eastern trick. If you can get good at it, which I've done pretty well with it, it can be very beneficial. There's nothing metaphysical about it. The human being has a way of reversing and looking at himself. We, unlike most animals, we have a sense of consciousness that recognizes ourselves. As far as we identify ourselves, we're a human being. Here's my brain. I can see myself. We have something that most other organisms do not. And the beauty of that is that you can place yourself a little bit outside of yourself, if you think about it. In other words, you can recognize when you get angry. You can recognize when you get sad. You can recognize when you get upset. And if you can make that detachment, everything becomes an abstraction. Because emotions are these triggered chemical attributes that come from various places. They can create biological changes. They create many hormonal changes, and they're triggered obviously through environmental input. And all it is data basically that's running through your system. And it can make you feel very badly if you let it get into you and let it absorb into you and you just become it. But there's a way to not become it, and that's to step outside of yourself and say, wow, I'm really pissed off right now, or I'm really upset right now. And if you can break that and do that, it's a great little mental exercise to practice and to keep yourself kind of in balance. Beyond that, though, and coming back to Martin Luther King, I keep by my bed a book called A Testament of Hope, which is about 600 pages, I think. It is the complete collection of all of Martin Luther King's writings. And to be perfectly frank, I see what we're doing in many ways as a civil rights issue. Everything for the past, well, probably thousands of years have taken tremendous divisions, and slowly the divisions have been breaking down. Slowly, slowly, slowly. We finally were able to abolish segregation and slavery and everything else. We finally had women back into a general equal balance. And obviously many games are played today, but the final frontier, well, probably not the final frontier, because I don't know if there's such a thing, but the next level is class. The next level is class. And people don't think about class from the standpoint of how you would think about racial segregation. Class, as it exists today, really is a form of civil rights. It's a civil rights issue, excuse me. It's a civil rights problem. Class is not some, well, of course, the illusion of class is that, oh, if you're really good, then you'll elevate your class, you'll go up the social ladder, and all of this. This is all mythology. And in my lecture called Social Pathology that I did on Zeitgeist Day in March 13th of this year, I went into the fact that in America, there's very little chance that anyone's going to be moving out of their current class. This just show that it doesn't matter how hard you try. In fact, I mean, it's an old joke now. The rich do very little work. The middle class do all the work, and the poor essentially are there as a crime and fear base. I don't want to keep jumping around here, but crime is needed to sustain this culture. They want crime. I'm not saying they as a conspiracy. It is a natural consequence of this sort of divide and conquer mechanism to keep people divided. So class in and of itself is a division mechanism. It's natural in the progression of the system, but it's also recognized for what it is in a real-time fashion that we have to keep the classes divided, or the power structure might be compromised. And this has been going on since the divinity of kings to the Roman Empire to what we have today. Just people don't recognize it. So coming back to my point, we are in a class struggle right now. This is really about generating an egalitarian system, generating equality for everyone, and not having to worry about the purchase power attribute which keeps people in their particular positions. So this isn't all we're talking about, obviously, but this is the way I think about it in regard to what I'm about to say regarding Martin Luther King. So I have next to my bed a Testament of Hope, and I read through his nonviolent peace elements. I read through everything, his inspiration from Gandhi. I look at his life experience, and I think to myself, wow, I can't compare to this individual. I certainly would never attempt to compare myself to the beauty of that individual and what he put forward and the values he put forward and how well he understood the mechanism of vendetta, the mechanism of getting revenge, all the mechanisms that are reinforced in the system. He knew everything about it, more so that, every time I read it, I find something new. But the point being, sorry to belabor this, is that it's extremely inspiring. It's extremely inspiring to go back and read and understand a human being that really understood and was able to work through it. He has stories about having some guy walk up, tried to shake his hand, quickly pulled out of the way and punched him right in the face, knocked him down. All of Martin Luther King's entourage, if you will, came and grabbed the guy, became very, very hostile as this reinforced in this culture of revenge and vindictive behavior. And King immediately got up and said, leave him alone, because he knew the moment you act aggressive in reciprocation just perpetuates the exact same humility and suffering and feelings of inferiority and all the complexities that lead to aggressive, violent behavior and everything else. So I want to encourage everyone to read James Gilligan, Violence by James Gilligan, probably one of the most important books on why violent behavior exists. And we're not talking just like murder. We're talking about violent behavior, both verbal violence, passive-aggressive violence, many forms of violence that aren't necessarily physical. And he describes how this materializes and why. And it's actually quite simple. But anyway, sorry to go on a tangent. But I do recommend A Testament of Hope if anyone feels, like they don't have a grounding or they don't feel inspired, because that's probably one of the most influential books I've ever read. And that's, Martin Luther King was his own person. People say to me, well, they've said to me in the past, oh, but PJ, you're an atheist. Martin Luther King, he was religious. Well, no, Martin Luther King was his own person. He had his unique interpretation of the books. He was the one that repeated the eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. He did not just blindly adhere to these religious texts. He drew out of it the altruistic elements that Jacques talks about, and he used that as a base of his ideological system to put forward. He was much more than... it's a part of his character. It's a beautiful part of his character. He couldn't be who he was without the religion. And that's really what the beauty of the Christian religion, in fact, really is, if you know how to pull the right stuff out of it. is there is a lot of beauty in it, beauty in all religions. But I won't go on that tangent. Sorry to keep shifting gears on you, Joel. But